Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Abby James, eldest daughter. So, Marcus Cicero, he says that the life of the dead is placed in the memory of the living. The proof of this lies before me as we are all here gathered to celebrate the memory and thus the life of my father, Anthony James. To be honest, I had no idea what or how to write, but I knew it had to be done. It's funny how in all the things we learn in conventional and in unconventional education, how to write a eulogy has never come up. So I think I'll just share a couple anecdotes and a couple things. So my dad, he's had many titles. Of course, father, husband, mechanic, entrepreneur, uncle, godfather, and relatively recently, grandpa. As most of us here are aware, my dad had a passion for cars. He loved cars. Though I think he tended to have a preference for the older ones. I know he derived a particular sense of pride whenever he restored an older car to some semblance of its former glory. And so he would spend most of his days, even when he was a firefighter, he would come home and he would have a car in the garage and he would always be tinkering with it. And I always remember the smell of oil on him, and his hands while they were pale was always tainted with oil. You just couldn't get that off of it. And I think the fact that he would work from sun up to sundown is probably a good example that led my brother and my sister and myself as well all into careers where we work from sun up to sundown, never faltering. So naturally, my dad, with his love for cars, has taught us all to drive. I think drive stick, all of us, I'm not sure. I know certainly myself. How to change oil and fluids, and even how to change a flat tire in record time, although he would always remind me as a girl, get a guy to do it, but in the event that no one's there, I can always do it myself. Despite how much he was a hard worker, when it came to us, he was a real softie. I don't know if my dad ever had the cause to raise his hand to my brother and my sister, but I know for myself, I was a terror as a child. And my dad had the cause to spank me a few times, or maybe more, I can't recall. The thing is, I would always know that it was coming, and I would run around the house, run in and out, and then when finally he caught me, that's when I would get my spanking. But it never lasted very long, because from the moment I started to cry, he would always give me a hug and tell me how sorry he was, and then it hurt him more than it hurt me. I still think the verdict is out on that. But in addition, anytime I had any sad moments, he was always there. I remember for my 5th form graduation, I had my first dance with my father, so he's been there with me, celebrating both ups and downs. And I remember one Valentine's Day, everyone was out and they all got their Valentine's presents, and I didn't get anything. So my dad went into the garden and he picked one of my mother's roses and he gave it to me, and he said, "For my only big daughter." And I'm surprised we weren't having this gathering then, because if you know my mother, you don't touch her garden, So that's definitely a pleasant memory. So when my dad was diagnosed as being a diabetic many years ago, he was not fazed at all. In fact, since then he's been telling us as long as he could make it till 50, he would be okay. He said that he had kids that he was proud of, he drove a nice car, he lived in a decent home, and that any other years would be extra. since I've been abroad, I've been studying and I've been working, but every time I come home, I always make it my duty to visit my father. I was able to visit him during my last trip home in November 2016. At that time, he said, well, I don't know how much longer I have here. I know you're busy doing what you have to, and I don't want to be a burden on anybody. I don't live my life. It's all it to now. Your brother has the kids, your sister has her kids, you know. And then he dropped his head as if in thought. And then he raised it up and he said, by the way, since I hear you was coming, I sent a ham for you to bake for me. So of course I had to go and bake this ham for him. He requested honey glazed. So I guess that was the last meal I made for him. Naturally, I'm saddened by our loss. Not just my loss, but everyone's loss here. Not for his death though, but for his words of advice and for his company. My dad was well aware he was dying, and he was mentally and emotionally prepared for it. And I guess in his own way, he was trying to prepare us for it as well. So, as I leave you, as I just have to say, like my father, I hope that when your time comes to die, don't be like those whose hearts are filled with fear of death, so that when their times come, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their life over again in a different way. Like Anthony James, when your time comes to die, I want you to sing your death song and die like the hero you was, going home. Thank you.